Hello. So, welcome everyone. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We have a very international audience today. So, thank you so much for dialing in from your various locations into what is the first of our series of webinars, where we're going to be talking about the type of projects we do most frequently for pharma companies. By way of quick intro, for those that don't know us, Conversphere is a social and digital insights agency headquartered in London with 7 other office locations around the world. We have a large global team of experienced analysts, allowing us to work natively in over 100 languages and dialects. Our pharma clients account for the majority of our business, and the pharma industry is very much the focus of this new training webinar series, which we are calling the Social Insights Academy. The aim of the sessions is to share our expertise and knowledge with in-house teams to help them develop and upskill their own social listening and digital insights capabilities. We would very much love for these sessions to be detailed and interactive, so please do ask your questions and share your thoughts and your ideas too. We would very much appreciate that. So my name is Paul Brothers. I co-founded Conversphere with Jackie 7 years ago. And Jackie has been working in social intelligence for 20 years with a specific focus on pharma. And she's going to lead the session today. So, Jackie?
Thank you very much, Paul. So today we're going to be discussing influencer marketing in pharma and healthcare and the life sciences industry. So before we kind of kick off into how we do it, I think we should briefly touch on what are key online influencers or KOIs. So many of you are probably already familiar with key opinion leaders, or KOLs. KOLs are the offline opinion leaders. They may be speaking at congresses, they may be part of the advisory boards or medical forums that you have or engage with. They're often well-established senior HCPs, and they have this offline presence that can be very influential. Whereas key online influencers are leaders in online communication. So whether that's within the therapeutic area, whether that's within a treatment discussion, these are online influencers, and they could be HCPs, but they could be other types of stakeholders as well. They could be expert patients, they could be a patient advocacy group, but what really sets them apart is that they influence and shape the online conversation. So as I mentioned, there's many different types of KOIs. So the HCP or healthcare practitioner is probably one of the ones that you're most familiar with. They would have a large online presence, or they have a very specialized group of followers or network that they associate with. Patients, expert patients and caregivers can often be key online influencers, leading the discussion around a specific therapeutic area, creating forums, speaking at conferences, sharing stories about their patient or caregiver experience. And then the last major one are advocacy or support groups. Patient advocacy groups are often leaders in the conversation, bringing together the latest in kind of awareness raising information, news, or medical developments that have happened, and really sharing the voice of the patients with the broader community. Often it works well for both patients and pharmaceutical companies to partner with these patient advocacy groups as KOIs and partners. So why even consider working with a KOI, or why even go about defining who they are? The first is reach. So traditional KOLs don't have the same online presence or online footprint or reach within the online discussion of these therapeutic areas or disease discussions. And these are the people who are online leading these conversations across communities, across platforms, or within specialized platforms or forums. By partnering with them, pharma and life sciences can have amplification of their messaging or information that they may not have been able to do so alone. If you look at the online profile of many pharmaceutical companies, and you look at who their audience is, who's following them, it's not always whom you think it might be. Often it could be investors following those accounts for information, or just the general public. So working with influencers within a particular topic area or category can really expand the reach. The next is ROI. So influencer marketing can have commercial impact. You can actually measure the level of engagement that is gained from working with these influencers online, both in terms of the owned kind of share of voice, or the impact of the earned share of voice or earned awareness that is generated by working with this influencer to either co-create content, to amplify the message of your content, or to help raise awareness of new treatments or therapies. The last is, I think, one area that's often overlooked, which is awareness and trust. So these KOIs are already influential, trusted figures within these topic areas and disease areas. They already have a voice and a kind of platform within there that's a trusted partner and someone that patients steer other patients to for guidance. So by working together with them, they can establish a level of trust that you may not have previously. We do have a few questions coming in, and I will get to those at the end, or I will do it now. I just saw it go up. So one of the questions was, how do you establish ROI for influencers? And this really varies depending on the business objectives of what you're trying to achieve at that point. So if the business objective is increasing awareness, the ROI could be looking at the value of the earned reach of the content versus what it would have cost for a similar ad spend to reach that type of audience. If it's increased prescriptions, you can monitor the kind of reach of the content or campaigns and compare it to historical sales data. Those are just a few, but there are other ways to do it, and it really depends on the goals and business objectives in each particular case. Okay, so what can pharma learn from KOIs? So one of the major things is they can understand the key topics of discussions of what's important to these not just these influencers, but the communities. They can listen and learn to the key topics. Often pharmaceutical companies, healthcare companies, they have an objective of what they want to talk about, but it's not always what the stakeholders in the online communities and conversations want to talk about. So understanding the topics and themes that are of interest can be really important in having messages that resonate within these audiences. So looking to the KOIs can help inform that. Looking to their conversations can also help you identify unmet needs of the different stakeholder groups, expressing the unmet needs of the HCPs, whether that's informational or educational, patients and caregivers around quality of life, cost of care, things like that. You can also understand things at a country-specific level as opposed to a global level. So understanding what these trends or needs are from these influencers market by market versus looking at them at a global level. You can understand competitive intelligence as well from listening to the KOIs. What treatments or studies or trials are these KOIs talking about in these different markets? By looking at when the conversations happen, you can understand optimal timings to engage or create or share your own content. And you can look at their networks of influence. So how are they connected to each other? What's the strength of their network? How many connections do they have in common? What's their level of engagement with each other? Because if you are working with one, you would potentially impact others depending on where they fit into that network. The next is product positioning. So how are treatments or therapies discussed by KOIs? And lastly is sentiment. So not just positive and negative, but the reasons why they are potentially expressing adherence issues or challenges to different treatments or therapies. So understanding not just the sentiment, but the how and the why is possible from looking at the online conversations of KOIs. But it's a two-way street. You can't just push out content, connect with these KOIs, and expect them to share your information or share your infographic or to decide to create a post about your study or trial. There needs to be a value exchange, right? You are asking them for their time, part of their voice, their credibility, part of their online platform. So there needs to be an exchange. Um, so ways that you can provide value back to them is by giving them access to your scientists, access to your medical comms, so that you can co-create content together. There are opportunities for online and offline engagement that gives them access. They could be an ambassador for your company to a medical congress. There's the co-creation of content. So creating a unique piece of work that potentially has a broader reach than content that you create alone could have. It can help them grow the social profile and provide them networking opportunities with online or offline advisory boards or groups. One of the questions is KOL and KOI, as you defined it, specifically related to the pharma industry? We use this in pharma and life sciences, but KOI, key online influencer, depending on the organization, could also be called a digital opinion leader, a digital influencer. So key online influencer could work across many different industries, not just pharmaceutical, but KOL is a term that's fairly consistent and used across pharma and life sciences to specifically mean these key opinion leaders who are primarily HCPs, medical researchers, scientists. So KOL is fairly pharma specific, but KOI could go across industries. And like I said, KOI could be a DOL or a DI or a e-influencer, depending on the lingo used in the specific organization. We have just taken on KOI as the term because it's one of the most broadly used. Let's see, moving on. Right. So why work with them and why identify them? Why listen and learn from them? They can help drive impact and engagement with patients and HCPs all the way along the pharma life cycle. So whether it's working with patient advocacy groups, you can have an impact on the diagnosis and testing phase, helping raise awareness of the condition, leading to early detection. You can work with HCPs at the kind of treatment phase, so you can help drive patient-centric interactions, help them understand kind of the language, and raise awareness around new trials and treatment options. Or even at remission, working with the patient advocacy groups, you can help share the stories of the expert patients or the patient influencers into the broader community and raise awareness of the condition in the public. Right. So how do you do this? I guess would probably be the next question. So at the very high level, you start off with the data collection. So using a social listening tool or platform, you can collect all of the conversations that are happening within a therapeutic area to start as your primary data set. Next, you would identify all of the authors and then kind of rank it by top authors. Then you do a manual scoring exercise to identify, depending on different metrics, which we'll go through, of how to prioritize and weight the different aspects of influence that these influencers have online. And then there's a desk research aspect where you're kind of mapping out the digital footprint of these influencers and creating a comprehensive profile on each of them of what their digital footprint looks like and how and what to engage them on. And then there's a mapping exercise to kind of understand who are the kind of priority influencers in terms of the type of engagement or activation you would like to conduct. Right. So influencer identification parameters. So we look at these metrics when we are identifying influence to profile these key online influencers. So we look at their authority. Who are they? Are they, if they're an HCP, are they a cardiologist? What is their expertise? What is their background? And then we look at the frequency. How often are they posting about this particular topic? Are they focused? Are they a cardiologist talking about only cardiovascular issues or a specific treatment of cardiovascular issues? Or are they a cardiologist talking about the news, the weather, and type 2 diabetes, as well as cardiovascular issues? What are the opportunities for engagement? How do these people seem to respond to requests to engage or to converse? Who is their audience? So who's following them? Who's engaging with their content? Is this a cardiologist followed by other cardiologists? Or is this a cardiologist followed by the general public? And influence. So how large is their network? When they post stuff, how high is the engagement or interaction on each of those posts? And for each of those, we give it a weighted score. And why we do this is because different projects and different clients have different business objectives. So, say the objective is to ultimately understand and inform and potentially influence prescriber behavior of cardiologists. So in that case, the audience, so is this a cardiologist followed by other cardiologists? So a cardiologist with 400 followers who are all cardiologists might have a higher audience weighting score than a cardiologist with 4,000 followers, but only 2 or 3 are cardiologists and the rest are the general public. So it's really kind of here is where you need to make decisions about what are the objectives, what do you want to understand about these individuals, and how do you want to potentially engage or work with them or listen and learn from them going forward. And that's where you place the weighting. And that is really important when doing the scoring and helping you understand kind of where they fit on the matrix of how to engage and work with them. Once you've identified who they are, you look for appropriateness. So do they meet the kind of objectives? Is the content relevant and appropriate that they're sharing? What does their social presence look like? Not just on the network that you first identified them on, but starting to look at their whole digital footprint. who are their followers? What do they look like? And what type of engagement do they have? What are their topics of interest? Are they talking about broad subjects, or very focused subjects? And what type of content are they sharing? Are they sharing um, uh, are they just resharing news, or are they adding their own commentary, sharing critiques of trial or study results? Are they sharing their published journal articles? Lots of different things. Um, so one of the questions are, what are the most popular social media and platform that they use? Do you have that info? Absolutely. So some of the networks that work really well for this are historically Twitter, but there's changes happening there every day. But what is good about that is that HCPs generally speak around medical conferences and congresses and share opinions on studies and trial results around conferences and congresses. And you can also see their networks and followers on networks like Twitter. You can also identify networks on YouTube, and LinkedIn will soon be coming, and other networks like Instagram, and if they have a public profile on Facebook, that is a little bit harder to do, as much of the access is locked down. But I would say Twitter, increasingly TikTok, soon LinkedIn, yes, Instagram and YouTube. Those are some of the key networks. Let's see here. So one of the other questions is, how do you measure and understand what the KOI's audience looks like? So there's ways to do this manually using open source tools such as NodeXL and Gephi. And there are ways to, or you can, there are tools like Audience and Affinio, which help you do this much more quickly because that's what their enterprise software is based on. So you can do it manually. It just will take more of your time, or you can use specialized tools. Right. So follower analysis. So this is actually an output from audience in this case. So we've already identified the influencer. We're looking at their network and who follows them and engages with them. So you can see this green cluster here are actually made up of other HCPs, whereas other of these kind of groups of their followers are kind of different types of scientists and professors, physicians and MDs, rheumatologists exclusively. So you can start to see not just kind of who they are and how they connect and engage with each other, but you can also get information around their attitudes, behaviors, media that they consume or are over or under indexed with, and some basic demographic information. So one of the questions is, how do you identify which HCPs belong to which collective or specialty? It is by looking at how they identify themselves in their profiles, the links to their LinkedIn or academic or hospital affiliations that they have listed, or academic accreditations that they have shared. Let's see here. Sorry, there's so many questions coming up that I will try and get to all of them. So can you use PubMed to identify specialties as well as their publishing partner? Yes, absolutely. So you can look at first author, second author, and there's some good AI tools out there right now too. If you haven't seen it yet, Research Rabbit is really, really helpful in identifying based on the original kind of author name or topic area, the authors who are relevant or connected to that space. Right. So, profiling them. So, once you've identified them, you've looked at their followers, you have an understanding of who they are. It's the desk research part where you are creating a detailed bio on them. You're looking at the type of engagement, the areas of interest that they have, the type of content that they share, their key strengths and strategies for engagement. Um, so when I said we're manually scoring them, we are taking all of the conversations from that therapeutic area. We are exporting the conversations along with all of the information about the posts and the author that's available. We that's using social listening tools. And then we do that manual scoring process. So here on the left side, the profiles are captured and we identify all of the unique authors from the data set from that time period. And then we do that. If you going over here to the right side, then we expand on that, looking at their entire online digital footprint. And then bottom right here, scoring on those different weighted metrics that we talked about, their authority, their engagement, their focus, to help us get the metrics we need to start reporting. And this is what it looks like. So you start with 2,000 conversations in a specific therapeutic area. Then you look at how many unique authors were in there, in this case, 227. Then we prioritize the top 50 authors to create a kind of long list of 30 whom we would recommend profiling. And then we review those with the client or the teams to say, here's who they are, here's what they're interested in, here's why they're influential, before we take the time to do that deep dive into the desk research and creating the really comprehensive profiles. So it's really important that you kind of take this step, so you don't spend too much time creating those profiles on people or KOIs whom that 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 may not be of interest. Sometimes the objective is to only work with HCPs or only work with patient advocacy groups or a mix of expert patients, patient advisory groups and HCPs. So it really depends on kind of the project and the business objectives. So when I was saying we do this weighting, looking at their kind of focus, their authority, their engagement, by scoring those and mapping those on a matrix, it can help you understand who are the KOIs with high focus but low social media engagement. So they're putting out content, they're proficient and on the topic, but they just really aren't getting any engagement around their content or posts. So that may be someone you may be interested in. Listening and watching over time, or potentially working with them to help them upskill and improve their social media presence. Whereas over here on the top right, where it's high MS focus, high authority, and high engagement and influence, those might be the ones where you want to invest the most time and energy in co-creating content, or having them potentially be an ambassador, or working with them in an offline advisory capacity. The ones here in the lower left, low social media engagement, low influence, low focus, while they're still a KOI, these are the ones that you might just want to share an infographic with, have them reshare it, but not spend too much time or energy working to engage with them. And this is what it looks like when you map them out here. So you can see Dr. Aaron Boster is right up here with a high MS focus, high authority, high social media engagement and influence. He's someone who it's worth taking the time and energy to work with to really co-create unique content, form potential offline or online advisor. And it's versus over here in the bottom left, those are the ones that you would spend less time and focus with, but listen to them and engage with them. Then you would create these deep profiles. So, biographical information, their entire kind of channel presence, their digital footprint, their performance metrics on each of those platforms, the topics that they like to talk about, because you can't just shout at people and hope that they want to talk about what you want to talk about. It's really important to understand what their interests are and what they want to talk about, and work with them in the language and communicating on the topics that are of interest but are of mutual interest to you both. And then we share examples of why they're relevant, the topics they're discussing, and example pieces of their content, and then engagement recommendations, what to engage them on, how to engage them, what topics, and potentially where and when, and an understanding of what their key follower segments are like and kind of who they are. So if you are working with them and are engaging with them on this content, what the possible implications and ramifications of that is on their larger kind of follower group that they're engaged with. So one of the questions was any concerns working with HCPs data regarding GDPR. So they are using their professional name. So obviously, if they're on Twitter and they are using a pseudonym, they're not posting in a professional capacity. If they are posting their professional profile and their professional views and linking to their institutions or organizations, then they are kind of putting themselves forward in the business capacity, and it's considered, legitimate use. You would, if you want to then work with them or engage with them, you would need to contact them directly and work within GDPR guidelines to then engage with them. But it falls under the business use and professional profile. Let's see. Right. Oh, that's a good question. Could you use this to determine rising stars? I think you absolutely could. And those are the ones who would be in this top left quadrant, that they have a high focus and relevancy, but they have less social media engagement and influence. So a number of different pharmaceutical companies have really had success creating HCP digital and social media education programs. So working with them to upskill them. And there's been some good programs bringing in the key online influencers to work with the traditional KOLs to upskill them on social media. So to bring their influence and to bring their information they're providing into the kind of social media and digital age. Okay, let's see here. And you can also look at their networks. Like I said, this is using audience would be a manual, kind of an automated tool way to look at this, but using NodeXL or Gephi, you can look at the networks. So each of these little balls is an individual profile. In this case, these are patient advisory groups, HCPs, and expert patients listed as, patient J, patient K, pseudonymized here. And the colors represent the different countries, and the thickness of the line between the profile dots shows the strength of these networks. So how many followers they have in common, so how engaged they are. So you can see here on the left hand side this patient advocacy group is heavily connected to many of the influencers, not just within their own country, but across countries as well. So understanding kind of what the broader network looks like can help you understand who may be some of the best influencers to engage with. Let's see. Overall recommendations for engagement. So you can make recommendations based on their kind of attitudes, behaviors, and interests, or where they fall on that matrix, or the topics and themes that they're discussing. But not just identifying them as important, but then what do you do with them is of critical importance. So you can map them by how they want to be engaged, or the opportunities for engagement, or the topics and themes, or even, are they attending the same conferences and medical congresses? So, you can have that view about how and where to engage them with. And you can have these engagements at an individual level as well. So some of the most common engagement initiatives are in recruitment, content creation, advisory boards, either online or offline, co-creation of content, editorial content or outreach, creating relevant and focused educational content, or listening and learning over time to really understand how influencers, these key online influencers, speak differently about topics, or are on the leading edge of information being shared that you need to be aware of, or highlighting areas of concern that may be coming up within these communities, or even unmet needs over time. So once you've identified them, you've profiled them, you know how you plan to engage with them. These are some examples of co-creation of content. So on this left-hand side, the client identified the influencers, the topics they wanted to speak about, and then co-created content that was released around a medical congress. On the right-hand side, you can work with them to share back information or create content that is shareable by the different KOIs on different platforms. Right. So that brings us to the end. But I can, Paul, did you see any questions I missed? There were so many going through.
Yeah, so do you know what? I think you did well. So you did well generally, thank you. And I think you did well. You picked up a lot of those questions along the way. So I think pretty much all of them were done. We did get 3 or 4 other questions that came in, not on the comments. So, okay, so that was the first one. Why go beyond KOLs to KOIs? We can address that one.
Yeah, so the key opinion leaders are traditionally offline or in the medical literature and journals, whereas the KOIs are already leading the conversation online. So they have the credibility within that channel, platform, or community. So it's good to understand, listen, learn, and work with them because they already are tapped into the community in a way that has kind of relevance, authority, and trust that an organization or company coming into that conversation may not have on their own.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So the next one was, if I'm interested in a multi-market project, how does this work with KOIs?
Yep. So you can do this at a global or a local level. From that network map, you saw that actually these influencers are engaging on channels across countries. So sharing information, sharing content, engaging with each other within the topic area or the area of expertise. But having like global influencers is different than in-market influencers. You may not have the same level of impact or interest using potentially a global KOI in a particular market that you would working with the KOIs within that particular market. So it really depends on what your objectives are in how you're planning to work with them and what you're trying to do at the end once you've identified these influencers. But it's absolutely possible to do this in markets big and small, at a regional level as well. But again, it really depends on your business objectives.
Okay, thanks. And we did have another question, which was similar to one we covered during the session, but slightly different. So we talked about top platforms, but are there other channels and platforms where you can identify KOIs? And how can that be merged with a multi-marketing strategy?
Yeah. So primarily because the HCPs have been conversing on Twitter and you can understand the audiences and the networks, that's been kind of the network of choice. But increasingly, TikTok and YouTube has been, and Instagram, depending on the therapeutic area, is of interest. LinkedIn will be available soon. Right now, there's no API access available, but there's good news coming down the pipeline on that one. So you can identify and work with them across channels and across markets. So this can integrate into your broader plan of online and offline, and yeah, you can. This can be done across channels and countries.
Okay, great stuff. So, and also I just noticed, so Steve has just put a question in, which is the last one in the comments box. Do you want to pick that one up?
Sure.
Can you pick that up?
Nope, it's So we do the social insights and the identification and the profiling, the engagement and co-creation, and that type of work is done by the digital agencies. So I think they need to abide by the different best practices and laws. So in those cases, I think they would need to in many markets use the ad, or if there was any kind of information that someone was compensated for, I think they need to share that in different jurisdictions. But our work stops at the kind of identification, mapping, and profiling, and then it goes on to communications or digital agencies to do the co-creation.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
So I think, okay, so that was it. You did well there. You picked up all the questions, covered everything. So of course, if there's any more questions anyone has after this session, then feel free to just drop us a note. You can fire questions to Jackie. As you can see, Jackie@commosphere.com. You can fire the easy ones to me, Paul@commosphere.com, and I'll answer those for you. But yeah, feel free. Always open, always keen to chat, and if necessary, always keen to jump on a call and go through some any areas in a bit more detail. A couple of things I did want to mention. I know we're going to bring it to a close quite soon. I think the timing has been quite good. We're trying to keep these pretty quick and cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time to make good use of everyone's time. All of these sessions that we're going to run will be recorded, and we'll obviously make those recordings available to everyone. So look out for an email with that. That'll be coming your way soon. As I mentioned earlier on at the beginning, so this is the first session we've done in this series. We are going to be doing more. We're looking forward to doing more, actually. We're going to aim to do about one a month, but we'll give plenty of notice when they will be. Some of the sessions that we've already identified that we're going to cover in the future is going to be audience segmentation of personas, network analysis. We're going to look at brand tracking and performance. We're going to delve into competitor intelligence, and we're also going to do patient journey mapping. So these are the ones that we think are going to be quite interesting for everyone, and we're working on those now. If you have other areas that you would like us to cover and add to the list, we will be delighted to do so. Just drop us a note again on the same emails, and we will pick those up. And yeah, be delighted to do those and add those to the series. And hopefully this will build a nice bank of useful information, which you can use for yourself, but obviously share with colleagues if that's going to be useful. So I think, unless there's anything else, or I've missed anything, we might be done.
thanks for the great questions and comments and feedback. And if you guys think of any questions later, certainly shoot me an email. I'm happy to answer or hop on a call.
Yeah, and actually there's been some other good information shared in the comments today, so I do appreciate people getting involved, and we appreciate the exchange of good solid information. So that's good stuff, and hopefully that continues on the other sessions we do. Thanks everyone. Have a good rest of the day.